Hey everyone, and welcome to this brand new series on reflection, where every single week I will be reflecting on my top 3 lessons that I've learned from my podcast guest. I know when you're probably listening to a podcast, you're usually on the go. You're either walking like me, or gone for a run, you're at the gym, you're on your daily commute, or sometimes you're just washing up. And so often when we're listening to a podcast and we're learning all these lessons, we forget about them. We don't always have a notepad or pen to hand. And so often that doesn't allow us to really learn what the guest is telling us. So this series is as much as for you as it is for me, because every single week I always learn so many amazing lessons from my podcast guests. And I think, why don't I have a summary of what they've taught me? Why don't I have a summary of the habits, the lessons that I can actually implement into my daily life? You also all know that I have so much to say on my podcast, and sometimes I don't always get a chance to share my perspective or reflect on the lesson that they've taught me. This has happened to me so many times, and what I really wanted to do in this series was share my own reflection, my own perspective, and my own story from what I've learned from the guest. So this week, I am so excited to share my episode with Jay Shetty. Jay has been someone who I've been motivated, inspired by for such a long time, and I've never received so many messages about people spending hours and writing pages and pages and pages of notes, because this episode was so powerful. But I want to share my top 3 lessons today, and I'm also going to be posing questions to you so that you can reflect on them too. So the first lesson that I want to share with you that Jay shared with me was how to not let jealousy turn into envy. Now, jealousy is a very normal human emotion. We all feel jealous of someone or something or some people in our lives. And that is a very normal thing to feel. Now, I want to add here, I've heard the phrase, turn your jealousy into inspiration. And I've said that so many times. But what Jay added was a layer on how to actually do that. So what he said is, when you're feeling jealous of someone, it's often because you haven't studied them enough. You don't know when they wake up. You don't know when they go to sleep. You don't know all the actions they've taken to reach that level of success. So when we look at someone who's just bought a new house, or we look at someone who's just bought a new car, or we look at someone who's in a really happy relationship, what we don't understand are all those things they've had to do to work on themselves and act on things to get those things. So often we look at someone launch a new business or get a new house or have a new idea, and we think, well, that could never be me. I could never do that. And jealousy is a really good indicator of showing you, hey, I want those things. But what happens is we disempower ourselves and we think we can't get it. So the thing that allows you to turn jealousy into something that's really powerful is actually identifying what steps that person's taken to actually turn their idea into something successful. Now, the other powerful thing is, when you put the work in to understand what it takes for someone else to hit the goal that you so want, what you're really doing is understanding those steps, and you've created a blueprint. You've understood how someone was in this position, now they're in this position. You're still in this position, but you want to get here, and now you've identified all the steps that it takes to get there. So guess what? Now you can do it too. And I think this lesson is so powerful, especially in the new year. The new year is a time where everyone wants to announce that they're doing new things. Hey, I've launched this new thing. Hey, I've started this new thing. Hey, I'm doing this new thing. Whether that's with your health, your career, or your relationships. And so often we look at that and we think, it's just come out of nowhere. How has that person just done that? And what it does is it doesn't allow us to see the hard work that's been put in for probably days, months, and years in the lead up to that time. So if we really study someone and understand exactly how we got there, we really respect them. And I really love that Jay brought this point up. He said that what happens when you don't study someone is you start to disrespect them. You start to find all the reasons they've got there, where they haven't really worked hard, where they've just been handed to them, where they've just had it easy. And what that does is it disempowers you and makes you think, well, I don't have it easy. I don't have a rich dad. I don't have a privileged background. I don't have the tools to do that, and therefore I can't do it. Whilst if you understand the actions that they took, you can start taking small steps in that direction. Now, he also mentioned here that envy can come into this really horrible feeling inside of your body. And what he encourages you to do is drink jealousy and envy as the elixir to boost and motivate you to take action. And I thought that was a really, really, really powerful point, that so often we look at someone and we think, oh my God, they've got that, and I can't get it, and therefore, you know what, I'm just going to feel really horrible about myself. But instead, if you understand the actions that they took, you can really start to figure out how you can get it, and that is so empowering. So I have 2 questions I really want you to reflect on. The next time you feel jealous of someone or something, really pause and think about, what can I learn from this person? What can I see that they have done? And then the second question is, how do I create my own roadmap to success? So if you pause and you think about really what have they done and you understand everything that they've done, you can then apply it to your own journey. And this is really, really crucial. It's not about a copy and paste. It's not about they did that, so let me do that. It's about looking at the action that they did, not what they did, the action that they did. I'll give you an example. If you look at someone and you think, oh, well, they've just bought a new house and you really want to buy a new house, it's not about copying exactly what they did for them to get to a new house, because it might not apply to you. It's about looking at the actions that they took, the work that they do, the relationships that they hold, the support that they have, for example, that allows them to focus on something which gets them the house. Does that make sense? So really think about the action that it is, not just what they did. Now, the second thing that Jay mentioned, which he said he's talked to loads of people about, especially he's had some massive guests on his podcast, and he said the secret to success is through experimentation and through trying things new all the time. Now, what Jay explained in the episode is he said that he tries something new every single week. And if he wanted to get something, what he would do is try something new every single week. We all know the power of small habits, but trying something new every week is so powerful that number one, discovering your purpose or advancing in your business or getting better or whatever you do. Just trying one new thing every single day. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a new skill or a new habit. This could just be changing something about the way you're already doing something, but adding something new every single week. One thing that I wanted to do this year was how to make my podcast grow, how to make it even bigger, even better. And I had this idea around this self-reflection series because I always just have so much I want to say after the podcast when I've listened to it and understood it a little bit more. And so I thought, how can I do that? Now, it didn't mean I had to start a brand new podcast. It could mean that I could add to my own. So I reached out to Canon, who I've worked with previously, and they were so kind to gift me this camera. I got some lights off Amazon. I know it's not perfect yet, but I'm still learning. I got this mic off Amazon too. And these are just small things that I did last year to really allow me in the new year to launch this. So it's about thinking about what can you do differently to add. What small habit, what small change can you do? And my question to you is, what's one small thing that you can test this week? You don't have to spend hours and hours on it. And I think this part is really important. How long can you dedicate to this new habit or this new skill or this new thing that you're going to do? If you have half an hour in your life, great. If you have 3 hours in your life, great. If you have a day in your life, great. Do that every single week. But make sure you commit to something that is really realistic and achievable for you so that you don't feel overwhelmed and then upset when you don't do it. My question to you is, what one small thing can you dedicate your time to? So my question to you is, what's one small thing that you're going to do this week? And then the second question is, how much time am I going to dedicate to it this week? If you have 30 minutes, amazing. If you have 3 hours, even better. And if you have a whole day that you can dedicate every single week, great. But a lot of us don't have that much time. And what overwhelms us is we see someone doing something for 3 hours a week and we think, oh, I can't do that, so I can't do anything at all. It doesn't have to be that way. You can do something for 30 minutes a day and these small changes will compound. And by the end of the year, you'll be way more advanced and way better than you initially thought. Now, my third lesson of the podcast is a personal story that I really want to share with you, but I'm going to share what Jay said first. He said that when he was having a conversation with God asked him, are you ready for what it takes? You know, what Jay does on social media, what he does with his content, what he does with his whole mission can be really, really damaging at times because you have so much criticism. I don't even have a tenth of his platform and I already get bombarded with so many negative comments and horrible feedback. And whilst a lot of you are really nice, there are some people, especially on TikTok, may I add, who just feel that they have a lot to say. And it took me a really long time to grapple with that. But what Jay said in the podcast was when he was having this conversation with God, it really allowed him to reflect and think, am I prepared for this? Am I ready for this? Have I got what it takes? And that is a question that I had to ask myself last year. I'm going to share something with you which I haven't really shared before. I went through a really, really difficult time last year where I was experiencing a lot of negativity. I felt like I was being brought down. I felt like my character was being assassinated. I felt like I was becoming so unhappy because of how other people were perceiving me. And it really, really tore me down. If someone's telling you constantly that you're a bad person, sometimes you start to believe it because we all have that inner critic and that inner voice that tells us bad things about ourselves. And it was a really, really challenging time. And I remember thinking at that time, this is a test from God, because if I cannot take this now at this level in my career, that I'm not going to be able to accelerate and be able to take it from so many more people at a later stage in my career. And I guess this is the battle with social media, but it's also the battle with so many other things. This question really made me reflect on when people say, I really want to go for a promotion. I really want to move house. And so often we don't realize the pressures that come with that. When you're going for a promotion, the question to ask is, am I ready for the challenge? Am I ready for the extra hours? Am I ready for the new ideas? Am I ready for the office politics? And even if you have your own business, it's about thinking, am I ready for this growth? Am I ready for my business to scale? Because there's so many things that come with growth. The same thing with a new house. It's like when somebody says, I want to buy a bigger house. Are you ready for what comes with a bigger house? Are you ready for that bigger mortgage? Are you ready for more problems in the house? Are you ready for how to manage it? And I think so often we set ourselves a goal without asking ourselves, am I ready for what it takes? And this lesson was so important to me because it's about understanding, especially in my journey last year, that it's not personal. I've talked about this example a lot, but one thing that I absolutely hate is truffle. And people think I'm mad. People love truffle. It's like a cult. But personally, I love mushrooms. I love mushroom crisps. They're my favorite crisps to eat. They're by Other Foods. They're the most incredible crisps I've ever eaten in my life. I also love mushrooms in my food. But for some reason, I absolutely hate truffle. And people would look at that and think, that is so weird. How can you hate truffle but love mushrooms? But it's just the way it is. And it really helped me to reflect last year and think, okay, well, people must love self-development, but they just don't like my voice, or they just don't like the way I speak, or they just don't like my podcast or my ideas. And that's okay. And my content sometimes reaches so many people, it would be ridiculous for me to think that everybody should like me or, align with my message or be on the same journey as me. So a really big question that I learned was a really big lesson here for me was it's not that personal. But my question to you now is, when you've identified your goals for 2025, I'm sure many of you have, really understand, do I have what it takes? And list out all the things, going back to that first point about studying somebody, list out all the things that it's going to take. It's going to take you canceling. It's going to take your evenings away. It's going to take you having to sacrifice certain things. What are those things, and are you willing to do that? Because if you're not, then perhaps it's not something that you actually really want to do. These are my 3 key lessons from my podcast with Jay. And if you enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate if you could press the like and share button so that you can share this with someone who needs to hear it today. I would also really love to know what your key lessons were, and if you have any questions for me to reflect on too. I've created these episodes to be short and easy to listen to so that you have the time to sit down with a notepad and paper and really reflect on these questions. I'm so grateful to every single one of you who has supported me in this journey. We've just hit 100,000 subscribers, and I'd be so grateful if you could let me reach my 250,000 subscriber goal this year by pressing the like, follow, and subscribe button. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your Sunday with me, and I will see you on Tuesday with a very special guest. She's a close friend of mine. She's taught me so much about myself, and I'm so excited for you all to hear the episode. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you again on Tuesday.